Hey, Divine Leader, and welcome to this episode on what's enough when more is actually less. So I'm curious, what's enough? What's enough money? What's enough impact? What's enough clients? What's enough programs in your business? When is it that you have a sense of what's enough? Now, I've been percolating on this topic for a while, and I'm really excited that right now we are going to dive into it, because this question of what's enough is one that is related to the larger context of the evolution in consciousness, in terms of having been in separation consciousness and now being in the new paradigm of wholeness, of unity consciousness, from duality to wholeness, from separate to being in a state of union. And it's also this question of what's enough not only has to do with the larger evolution in consciousness and what Toth and the Council of Light and the Tri talk about in terms of the divine expansion project, because it is natural for us to always be expanding. We have divine desires, and that's a natural expansion. Yet it's also something that I see a lot of purpose-driven, mission-driven female entrepreneurs and global leaders struggling with. Our clients, my colleagues, also myself, of really knowing when it's enough, especially as high-achieving, highly ambitious, high performing, on big mission kind of folks that we are. And so this question of what's enough is one that I feel like it's really personal. It's really bespoke to you and individualized to you. And really having an awareness of, not only is it appropriate for you to have a sense of what's enough, what money targets are really like in Goldilocks, this bed's too big, this bed's too small, this bed's just right. Your money targets that really are just right for you. And of course, they'll continue to expand and grow. And yet, here in the seven-figure spiritual leader, I was really conscious around having this 7 figures, because that is what is aligned for me and my mission, and the desire for more money is simultaneously who it is that I get to become, who it is that you get to become in the process. And then what does the mission require in terms of resources, in terms of money, in terms of team, in terms of time, whatever, in terms of lives changed. And yet 5 figures may be what's in right relationship for you. 6 figures may be really enough. Multi 6 figures may be enough. 500K, 700K, whatever it is. And to really, and I got to this place myself, like in the last 6 months, of going, this is really enough. Yes, of course, there's always more expansion and more that the mission can be buoyed by, welcoming in more financial flow. And yet there there's a sense of being satiated. There's a sense of being fulfilled. So as we're speaking about leadership also here, part of having a higher standard as a new paradigm leader is also taking ownership for what really is enough for you on the resource level. And that relates to what are enough hours that you put into your business or into a certain area. Like the what's enough question relates to the larger evolution in consciousness. It relates to the transformational business industry and those of you who very much are purpose-driven, mission-driven female entrepreneurs. And then it also relates to the industry, and then it also relates to you as a leader to really be deciding what is enough, what's enough. And feeling fulfilled is really feeling full, really having that deep down to the bone level of fulfillment. And just like somebody outside of you can't tell you when you're full, when you've eaten a meal and you've taken in nourishment, it's like there's that sense in your own body where you're full. And if you've ever had an ulcer, for example, there's the sensation of the ulcer that's always kind of giving this signal of not enough food, like always being hungry, always being hungry, always being hungry. And separation consciousness is kind of like an ulcer on a lot of levels, where no matter what mountains get climbed, what targets get reached, what milestones are actualized, there's this sense of always being not being satisfied or not being satiated, or this drive to push to climb that next mountain when that mountain has just been reached. Now, this is really a characteristic or a conditioning, perhaps, of being highly ambitious, being a high achiever. And it's really up to each of us to model and to know what is enough, and not that what's enough because I've tried all these things and it isn't working, so I'm just going to settle for what I got instead of what I really desire. So I don't mean that, but really also allowing that deep level of fulfillment. So let's chunk this down a little bit more into how this may show up in your business, and what I've seen a lot with Divine Transmissions clients and also with myself. So I remember a few, gosh, maybe it's been, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago, where I was running all the time, like 8 programs at once. So I am a divine transmitter. I'm a channel. I'm the keeper of the lineage of Thoth, the infinite knowledge, keeper of the Akashic records. So I'm a prolific creator, and I love creating. Like, I love creating. It's just my sweet spot. I love partnering with source and creating. And so I was always creating more, creating more, creating more, creating more, creating more. And I got to this point where there was this sense of, actually, well, a few things, that there were too many balls in the air, And each creation requires a lot of support. For every new program, there's a new invitation, there's new messages or marketing, there's a new, for my team as well, there's new product button, there's new copy that's written for an invitation letter or a sales page, there's a new thank you letter, there's a new portal, there's new content, there's new clients, there's just each one thing, in this case, like what's enough programs, what are enough programs in your business, it came to this place where actually creating more and having all those programs running actively wasn't really the most conducive environment for me, for the business. And then there was the different shifts. Some things went into the vault. Some things went into home study or online versions where they're not being run live. And then what also started to emerge was more of the current Opus level programs in the business, and this going deeper with each of those programs. Like we have the Divine Light Activation that I've been offering since 2016. And every time I've offered it, it goes deeper and there's more to that body of work that I and those that are choosing it, those that have a divine appointment with this body of work, to reincarnate as a light being incarnate, to really live as multidimensional CEOs, to upgrade to our new paradigm mission, all of that. There's been such a deepening in that process. And so you may ask yourself, if you've been established in business for a while, or I also see this with folks that are choosing to start their business, at Opus level, which we focus on in the Ascended Master Academy, of really scribing your unique body of work, your modality, your book, your Opus level business. Whether somebody's new and want to start at business at Opus level, or whether somebody's seasoned and you have a lot of these kind of earlier emanations of your Opus level body of work. But in the beginning, there can also be this like, well, I'm just going to kick out another thing, or I'll try this, or I'll try that. And rather than, and that can work, because as Toth and the Council of Light often say, there's more to be garnered from riding the bike than thinking about riding the bike. Like, I'm an organic creator. I learn experientially. When I'm in the moment and I see something, then the next piece comes in. So that can also be a part of developing into more of that, more of that Opus level. And yet, that what really is enough when it comes to having your programs? And sometimes we may have a lot of different programs because they're not fully developed. They're not really in the sweet spot of our divine geniuses, or there may be something also that we're trying to avoid, like this idea of, well, if I have a new program, if the existing program didn't sell out, then there must be something wrong with the program. I need to create a new program, then I'm going to have more clients. Whereas really going deeper with the program can also be and welcoming in more clients into that same program. There's a depth to it. It's reminding me of before I met my beloved husband Friedemann, that I had a lot of experience with 6-month relationships, that 6-month relationship, and then I could see that it wasn't going to work out, and then 6-month relationship. And I really got to this place where I was just like, okay, I'm done. Like it's me and the divine. And then of course, right, when we let go, that's when things happen. That's when I met my beloved Friedman husband for actually the second year, the second time we met, where we got together. And there really was that recognition, and that the process of letting go, and of the attachment of having a life partner. That was also like a bonus key for manifestation. And yet really the aspect of that is also that desire to say, okay, well, what happens after 6 months? What gets to happen? And what gets to happen after 5 years of being in a relationship, after 10 years of being in a relationship, after 22 years of being in a relationship? That there was more to be garnered at a certain level of my evolutionary stage from having that deep, long-lasting love than whatever I was learning with the 6 months, 6 months, 6 months. And so I see that parallel in my business. Now, part of the question as well, in terms of which programs got archived, was also because new paradigm requires new modalities. So I'm not saying to have one program and just offer it for 20 years, because most likely that's, with the way that the energies are moving and things are accelerating, it's probably not going to be current vibrationally. And the difference as well is when you partner with Source to create a program, or to create a body of work, or to create a book, and really are scribing it in wholeness, then the vibration exists within the program also to be up leveling, and also for each individual to be accessing exactly what it is that they require. So we've spoken about this larger question of what's enough money in your business, what are enough programs in your business. And part of the enough question also, in terms of programs, depends on the quality and the level of benefits that individuals are getting. And that old impulse to kick out something new may have come from, there's something about it that's not working, maybe it's not selling, or the clients are getting the results or whatever. And then really, rather than going into that and kind of tweaking and adjusting things, developing things, there's this idea of, well, I'll just move on to the next thing, and move on to the next thing, and move on to the next thing. And so we've talked about the larger evolution in consciousness in this question of what's enough. We've talked about you as a leader, as a spiritual leader, also deciding for yourself what's enough. And then there's really going, and we've used this example of too many programs. Now let's talk a little bit more about when more becomes less. And it was implied, it was inferred in what was already talked about in terms of having 8 programs, that the more of adding more programs actually became less at some point. It was less enjoyable. There were a lot of moving points. And yet there's also this recognition of when more becomes less, when more becomes a diluted version of something, when more, the desire for more impact, the desire for more clients, the desire for more likes on Facebook, or more Instagram followers, or more team members, or more recognition, actually gets to a threshold that the more becomes less, the more becomes less. And when we look at this from an alchemical perspective, or like essential oils, there is this process of essentialism, like the getting back to that which is essential, that which is absolutely essential to your mission, essential to your purpose, to your business, and then having what's essential really be curated, really being purposefully chosen, so that you simplify to amplify your mission. There's less noise and there's more this curated ecosystem or environment in your business where everything earns its keep. Everything is there for a reason. And sometimes for me, because I am a creator, and it can be easier for me to start something new than to edit it or to adjust it or whatever. Sometimes it can be really like this experience of starting with a clean slate. Let's say you wanted to have in your living room really everything in there to be intentionally chosen, so that it's enough, that you have the essentials in there. And it may be very lavish and opulent. I'm not talking about being minimalistic, although that may be what lights you up. However, there is really this recognition of, okay, sometimes it's easier to just clear the deck and then put back into the living room what really matters and what are the essentials into your living room. And so that can be the same with this question of what really is enough. Now, you may have listened to my episode where I was talking about hiking the Camino Trail, and that really is a very physicalized experience of this, what is enough, because during the hiking, you don't have to, yet we chose to carry on our backs our clothes, our water, our food. And the first year that I did it, for those of you who've traveled with me to Egypt, to Sedona, to France, when we were doing all those fun things, and hopefully we'll do them again, I like to have choices. So I just would throw everything in the bag and have a big suitcase. And yet when you're carrying it on your back, and this can be kind of a good litmus test of what's enough. When you're carrying it on your back, then there's this whole essentialism, that the essential becomes more obvious. So sure, you could have 5 different t-shirts that serve the same purpose, and yet do you really need 5 of the same thing? So as we're talking about this, when does more actually become less? And we're talking about this analogy of carrying something, and then also recognizing for you, really, where are the areas where you're just in a kind of an automatic pilot of moreism, more. Gotta have more money, more clients, more impact, work more, create more, like that the moreness is actually responsible for a lot of burnout, and it can become addictive as well, where there can be workaholism, or there can be an addiction to the stress hormones, the adrenaline, that kind of burning the midnight oil. And then that feeling of satiated, feeling fulfilled, just gets thrown out the window. So what would you say is where you struggle the most with this question of what's enough? And it may be around you being enough, like the feeling of I'm enough, that what I have to offer is enough, that you have that shift from any kind of imposter syndrome, or there's something inherently wrong with you, so you have to become better. Where in unity consciousness and the new paradigm, there's nothing broken, there's nothing wrong. It's natural to expand, and you want to expand, and yet you also expand that which is already going well, and you start to focus more on what's going well. And one of the reasons why I'm so deeply passionate about this whole subject of what's enough and feeling fulfilled is because it is one of the fastest ways to take a quantum leap in your evolution and consciousness. Because separation gets perpetuated by more separation, and not enough, and not enough. I'm not enough, or you don't know enough, or just you don't have enough time, have enough money, have enough energy, have enough relationships. And that shortest, fastest route that I have found in jumping into really having a 5D, multi-D spiritual leadership business and beyond is cultivating this deeply aligned capacity to feel fulfilled, to feel full, to feel full. And just like when you feel full at the end of a meal, you're going to want to eat again. So I know that for my high achieving side at times, that idea of like, this is enough can bring up a little bit of an anxiety in that side of me of like, oh, is she going to stop? What does that mean? Are we not going to fulfill our mission? What about the next ascension spiral of what's unfolding here? And that can also be just a moment to reassure the high achieving side that just like you're fulfilled with a meal, you're not trying to eat a whole buffet in a meal. You're going to want to eat again. Expansion is natural. Expansion's always happening. And yet the quest, the seeking, the unconscious seeking is what perpetuates scarcity. It's what perpetuates their survival consciousness. It's what keeps you always in the carrot in front of your nose, always separate from what is enough. What is enough? So as we're wrapping up here, I'd really invite you to identify your Achilles heel when it comes to enoughness. Now, this may show up again in you feeling like you're not enough or you don't know enough. It may show up in like others aren't enough, they're not pulling their weight, or an externalized in the old paradigm kind of you can go to either if something didn't go as well as it could, you may have a tendency to say, well, I am responsible for that. Or you may have a tendency to say somebody else is responsible for that. Now, of course, we talk a lot about divine to divine and equality and creating a new revolution in relationships that goes beyond power over and power under, to really, so there's not the victim and the victimizer or somebody that you're blaming, yet there may be this Achilles heel where you say, okay, I'm not enough, or somebody else is enough. I didn't do enough, they didn't do enough. Or it may be with a certain resource that is your Achilles heel, or the reason that you may separate from source. So it may be money, it may be time, it may be energy, it may be relationships, and to really practice that feeling fulfilled, and then when that core negative emotion comes up, just recognize it, that it doesn't mean actually what your big, beautiful brain may be telling you. It may simply be an indication that you've left source, and to come back into a feeling of feeling fulfilled. And so rather than mucking about with whatever it is that seems to be the Achilles heel of not enoughness, you focus on where it is that you do feel deeply satiated, where it is that you do feel fulfilled. And this is why, really the whole appreciation practice and gratitude practice, I feel like has been so widespread in the personal growth community in so many different ways. So you've heard about gratitude and appreciation, and it may even feel like so obvious or so simple. And yet when you're really in coherence, in a state of coherence with that deep down to the level of fulfillment, which appreciation and gratitude cultivate, which also opens up the DNA, then you have more receptor sites as well to receive. So I hope that you have enjoyed this episode as much as I have. It's really an amazing topic, and one that I feel like has the potential to unhook and jump into the new paradigm of wholeness, of abundance, of joy, of co-creation, and really being the highest expression of our wealthy woo leadership that we have the capacity for. Because that's also recognizing that when we are resourced with resources, and also resourced with signals within our own system, then that positions us to be an even greater contribution to the world. And it takes all of us to shift consciousness. So thank you for your contribution in that shift. And I hope that you've had an aha, a takeaway, a gem. I'm sure that you have, and really inviting you to flip the script and to really be looking at when less is actually more.